1 through 4, it gives you 4 different values, and it asks you to put them in order from least to greatest. So the first thing they want you to recognize is, are we working with a degree or are we working with a radian? Remember, degrees and radians are kind of like going from Fahrenheit to Celsius or from miles to kilometer. So they're just equivalent units. They're units that can be going from degrees, and then we already know how do we translate it into radians. So the first thing I want you to recognize is, if I give you a value, is it currently a degree or is it currently a radian? The way to tell that is, if it has a degree symbol, automatically degree. If it's missing this degree symbol, it's automatically radians. So very small underneath this, I'm going to write degree. There's no symbol. Radian, no symbol. Radian, and this is a degree. I'll do the same for number 2. Degree, there's no degree symbol. Radian, radian, radian. Please do the same for 3 and 4. I'll give you 15 seconds. Go. Okay, check your answers with mine, please. Now the next thing is, recognize that your calculator can do both radians and degrees. So start by hitting mode on your calculator, and there's no one way you have to start. I personally look at the first value, and it happens to be in degrees. So I go straight down to the 3rd line. I go across to degrees. Once it's highlighted, you have to press enter. Now it's currently in degrees, and then press clear. So I'm going to type in the cosine of 10 and enter, and I'm just going to round here to the nearest hundredth. So 0.98. Very small. And I'm going to do the other degree symbol. I'm going to type in sine of 10. Sine of 10. And round it again to the nearest hundredth, which would be 0.17. Now I'm going to switch to radians. Go back and hit mode. Go to the 3rd line. Have the black box go over radians. You have to press enter. And then clear out of the screen. Cosine of 10 is the next value, and I'm going to round to the nearest hundredth to get a negative 0.84. And cosine of 10 pi. Please always use the pi symbol and don't put in 3.14. So now I have 4 values, and I cannot just write these values down. I need to write down the exact value. So in order from least to greatest, negatives are always going to trump the other 3 positives as being the smallest. So I'm going to write down cosine of 10. The next smallest is the sine of 10 degrees. It's necessary to put the degree symbol to get it correct. Then cosine of 10 degrees. And final one is cosine of 10 pi, making sure that I put in the degree when necessary, and looks like it's right. Okay, 1 to 5 right now. How well did you understand that? 1 to 5. With your partner, you're going to do number 2. With your partner, number 2. I'm going to give you 1 minute, and then I'll share with you the answer. Begin. Say it again. So did you understand how I got these values, estimated values? And then I take those and I put them in order. So the smallest one was the negative. So I write down cosine of 10 because that's the exact. I don't want to put down the estimation. And then I look for the next smallest. The next smallest would be 0.17. So I put down the sine of 10 degrees. Yes, yes, from least to greatest.
Same thing where, you know how you say, I can in the quiz, it's like cosine like this, find the exact value, can you just
No, it's different. Well, okay, so when we did the quiz, I wanted you to find the exact value, and it was an order pair coordinate around the unit circle, right? So these are going to be found, but we're not going to find the exact. We're going to do an estimation that allows us to put them in order. Does that make any more sense? So now in order, the negative will go first. And then next, I look at my choices, and it's going to be 0.77, so I write the sine of 50 degrees. Between these two, it'll be the sine of pi over 3. And the last one will be the tangent of 1. 1 to 5, please give me your understanding of how to do this. 1 to 5 right now so I can see. Please put a star on 3 and 4. Don't take time to do those right now. 5 through 10. You're going to make your life really easy by being able to fill out this unit circle tomorrow. Remember, you'll fill it out tomorrow in class without the help of a partner and without the help of a previously done unit circle. I will not grade your unit circle, but you can use it on the test. So tomorrow I give you a blank unit circle. That's a large one. You fill it out in class, okay? I'll give you 6, 7, 8 minutes. You fill it out. Then I collect it. Then I give it back to you on the day of the test. Does everybody understand? Okay, if you do not have this filled out, you're going to want to take one out of your backpack so you can use it. So on 5 through 10, it says, hey, on the unit circle, there exists one point with this exact coordinate. So find your unit circle. Find negative radical 2, negative radical 2. Since they're both negative, I know they fall in the fourth or third quadrant. And I believe the answer, I believe it falls right here at, and there's two ways to say this, 225 degrees. Or you may say it like a radian, which would be 5 pi over 4. Okay, please find negative 1/2 and radical 3 over 2 with your finger. That's a great question. Do you have to put both as long as you have one? Okay, Carlos, what do you have for negative 1/2 and radical 3 over 2? So the way that I first find it is I go, okay, negative cosine, positive sine. That's going to be quadrant 2. Okay. I got it different. I have in my mind, I believe this is 120 or 2 pi over 3. Does anybody else have that? Carlos, can I use you as an example? Please listen closely. Please listen closely. If you happen to make a small mistake on your unit circle and you don't correct it before you take the test, do you see how you could easily get this wrong? Okay, let's go M. Go with number 7. So they're both positive. You're looking at quadrant number 1. And what's another way you could still say it, Emily? Or Emily, excuse me. Emma? 1 pi over 6 is right, or pi over 6. Okay, 0, 1. 0, 1. Find 0, 1, Chris. 1/2 pi is correct. What's another way to say it, Chris?
90 degrees.
90 degrees. Please find negative radical 3 over 2 and negative 1/2. So both negative. That means quadrant 3. You, Lisa? I got to think in my mind. 210 I like. 210. And what's another way to say it? Great. Last one. Can everybody find negative 1 and 0? Miss Clark, negative 1, 0. Did you say 100 and what? You got it. 180 degrees or pi. On a scale from 1 to 5, how well do you understand this concept? Remember, you don't have to put them both down. You can do degrees or you can do radians, your choice. Go, Emma. Well, let's see if I made a mistake. So, let's see. 1, 2, 3. I believe that this lies right here, which I think is 210. How many of you have 210? I think it's 210. I'll check right now, okay? So I have this up because I'm making an answer key. So let's check. So it is negative 3 pi over 2 and negative 1/2, which is right here. See it, Emma? And that's 210 or 7 pi over 6. Good to go? Okay, here we go. So this is kind of a fun challenge. Put your calculator over the top of that unit circle so you're not confused. Now, I am not asking, at this point, I'm not asking for the right answer. I'm asking for you to draw a picture that includes Skylar and includes all the information you're given. And it does not have to be a pretty picture like Skylar doesn't have to have hair. He can be a stick figure. Okay? First person to get it right will get candy. Call me over when you have it done. Include all the measurements. Ready? Get set and go. Yes, she's Leslie's not here today, right? Raise your hand when you have this picture drawn. I'll come over and check your work. Okay. Good to go. So you look this measurement. This is what from where to where? The whole thing building, right? Okay, next person. Who's the first person I did that? Okay, Carlos. No, that's your picture. Okay, Carlos, what are we trying to find? Okay, from where to where? Okay, so what's here? Okay, so you're very good, right? So when you find out X, is that your final answer? Or what? No, when you find out X, is that your final answer? Then we okay, you want me or no? No. Okay, so let me draw a very rough sketch. So here's Skylar. He's tall. He's like, Chris, how tall are you? 6'2"? 6'2", yes. So this is like Skylar, okay? And going to this building, this is the hospital. He has a really long neck. You're just upset you're not Skylar's height. Okay, so this angle is 53 degrees, angle of elevation. This distance is 225. We want to know this height. Now, once we know this height, our final goal is to figure out the entire height of the building. Now this is not drawn to scale, but what is this height? From the ground to Skylar's eye level is 6 feet. So once I know X, I'll be able to figure out X plus 6 to give you a final answer. We're going to round our final answer to the nearest foot, by the way, even though it doesn't say it in the problem. So trig function, sine, cosine, tangent. Which one of those is going to be helpful? From this angle, X is opposite and this distance is adjacent. What trig function talks about opposite and adjacent? Tangent. So the tangent of an angle is the opposite over the adjacent. Remember, you have to have those memorized. The tangent of 53 degrees is opposite over adjacent. Our goal is to solve for X. Right now we're dividing by 225. Opposite dividing is going to be to multiply both left and right by 225. 225's cancel. Now remember, we're working with degrees. Please go down your calculator to mode. Go down to degrees. Press enter when the black box is over the top of degrees, and then clear. We're going to type in tangent of 53 and then press enter. Multiply it by 225. The height of this hospital is not approximately 299 feet because we still have to take into this account the 6 feet from the ground up to the eye level of Skylar. So plus 6, and now I'm going to round it to the nearest foot, which would be approximately 305 feet high. Flip to the back. Okay, we're working on right now number 2 and number 3. Have one person between you and your partner read it, and then I'll ask you a question. Okay, so the most confusing thing for students with this problem is recognizing what is meant by a bracket and a parentheses. Remember, bracket means you touch it, which means it is included. You can touch it, it's included. Parentheses means you can't touch it, it's not included. On your calculator, please do second plus 712. Go up to y equals, and before we do that, let's change to make sure that we are in radians. So go mode, Make sure radians is currently the highlighted selection. Once you've made sure you're in radians, go back up to y equals, and we're going to work with cosine of x. So type in cosine of x. Then go to Windows. It specifically says your x values are going to go from 0 to 2 pi. So 0 to 2 pi, please do not use 3.14. And then to zoom in on this and be a little bit closer to the x-axis, let's go -5 to +5. Okay, now hit graph. As a reminder, this is 0 and this is 2 pi. This is the interval that I've set. Do we include 0? Yes or no? Yes, because it's a bracket. Do we include what happens at 2 pi? No, because it's parentheses. So how many x-intercepts do you see here? Problem done. 2 x-intercepts. Let's go on to the next problem. And the next problem asks the same thing. It used the same interval, except for they want us to do the sine. So instead of erasing everything, let's just go up here. Let's erase cosine and make it a sine. Now hit graph. By raise of hand, how many of you recognize 3 x-intercepts from on this interval? 3 x-intercepts, hands up high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who recognizes 2? Okay, so do we include this point at 0? Yes, why? Because it is in bracket. So we're going to include this one. We include this one, it's in between. Do we include this x-intercept? No, because it is in parentheses. So instead of saying there's 3, there's actually only 2. Why? Because we can't include this one at 2 pi. It's in parentheses. Number 14 and number 15 are fairly detailed problems, and they're pretty hard. They each are worth 6 points on your test, so pay close attention. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to start with the easy parts. So I'm going to circle all of the factors here, or you can highlight them. So reflection across the x-axis, that's one thing. Amplitude of 3 is another. Midline is another. Horizontal shift, period length, and sine. So those are the 6 things I get points for. Each one you do correctly, you get a point for. Let's start with the easy one. So y equals, we're writing a sine function that contains all this. It's a sine function, so write down sine. Hey, got that one done, I got 1 point. Has an amplitude of 3, remember amplitudes go in front. 2 to the 6, done. It reflects across the x-axis, which means we're going to put a negative with the amplitude in front. You got 3 out of 3 right now, 3 out of the 6 done. Now midline, above the word midline, please write vertical shift. A midline represents the equation of the vertical shift. So how far did you move it, above or below the x-axis? So the midline is a -2, which means we're not moving it up, we're moving it down. So I'm going to leave some space here to do other things and write a -2 behind. I've got 4 out of 6 points right now. The remaining 2 points are fairly difficult. Now, before I do those, I want to give you a little review from Tuesday. On Tuesday, I gave you something like this. And I said, find the period or the period length. How do we do that? Anybody? We took 2 pi and divided by whatever is in front of x. So 2 divided by 0.5 would give you an answer of 4 pi, right? Does everybody get that? 4 pi, okay? So the period length would be 4 pi. So we need to figure out what should go in front of this x to give you a period length of pi over 4. So we're going to work backwards. You should be doing the same thing with me right now. Right, 2 pi divided by, and we don't know what it's going to be. So 2 pi divided by, this is what goes in front of the x. 2 pi divided by what gives you an answer of pi over 4. I'm going to cross multiply to figure out what this question mark should be. Question mark times pi equals 8 pi. I'm going to isolate the question mark by dividing by pi. Question mark equals 8. That means 8 is going to go in front of the x. So down below, I'm not going to put it up here yet. You can give yourself just parentheses. Down below, I want you to write 8 parentheses x. Got that part done. Okay? The next part says the horizontal shift is to the left pi. Remember with horizontal shifts, we go opposite of what you think. So instead of saying subtract pi, you're going to do plus pi. Down here, go plus pi. And now I'm going to distribute that answer that I got to both and put it up here. 8x plus 8 pi. Problem done. Go on to number 15. In 3 minutes, I'm going to see what you can get done with your partner. And then I'm going to stop you, and I'll do number 15 with you. Ready, get set, begin. How did I get an answer of 8? Because there's a horizontal shift to the left pi, so instead of going subtract pi, we're going to go plus pi. Remember this represents your horizontal shift? Then I distributed it to put it back into the original equation. Done? You have an answer? Kind of? Oh, nice. Okay, let's get started. Y equals cosine. You already have 1 point done. Even if you get a little confused, you can at least get 4 out of 6 points here. Cosine done. Has an amplitude of 1. Do you need to put a 1 in front? If you don't see a number, we know it's a 1, but feel free to put a 1 there. Reflects across the x-axis. I got 3 points already. Has a midline of positive 1, so plus 1 in back. Has a period length of 3 pi over 2, so I'm going to come off to the side. 2 pi divided by something is equal to 3 pi over 2. Yes, you have to show your work if you're going to get points for this on your test. So I have 4 pi is equal to 3 pi times question mark. I want to isolate the question mark, so I divide by 3 pi. The pi's cancel, and question mark is equal to 4/3. So I come over here and I write 4/3 x. Now it's going to shift to the right pi over 2. So instead of going plus pi over 2, I'm going to go subtract pi over 2. And now I'm going to distribute 4/3 x. And then if I don't, I'm not going to count this wrong if you don't reduce. But without reducing, you get 4 pi over 6. If you put 2/3 pi, that's even better. One to 5, how are we understanding 14 and 15 if time is not a factor? Okay, go down to number 16. Have one person between you and your partner. Please read 16 out loud. Okay, so a roller coaster represents a sine curve. A roller coaster represents a sine curve, right? And it says that this roller coaster that makes the sine curve, the top of it is at this point. So I'm going to find 4 and 80. 40 and 80. There's 10, 20, 30, 40. You should be doing the same. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and 80. This is the very top of the roller coaster. So that's the very highest point. The lowest point is immediately followed by this hill, and that occurs at 60, 10. So 40, 50, 60, and all the way down to 10. Because remember, roller coasters, the roller coaster tracks is never directly on the ground, correct? You guys recognize they're always slightly above the ground? Yes? So here's the distance, by the way, of how far above the ground. If this is 80 and this goes down to 10, what is the distance above the ground? The tracks are 10, right? The lowest point is still 10 above the ground. So our first question is, what is the amplitude? And the second question is, what is the vertical shift? Reminder that vertical shift comes from your understanding of the midline. And the amplitude also comes from the midline. So let's find out the midline. That means from the highest to the lowest point, what's in the middle? So I know it's somewhere in here, but what is that? Well, 80 subtract 10 is 70. This is a distance of 70. What's halfway between 70? 35. But then you have to count for this 10 that's down here. So this isn't y equals 35, it's y equals 45 because it's the 35 plus an additional 10. So just to make sure, from 80 to 45 is a distance of 35, and from 10 to 45 is a distance of 35. Okay, that works out. So what is the amplitude? The distance from the highest point to the midline or the lowest point to the midline should be the same. The amplitude is 35 feet. And what is the vertical shift? That means what is your midline? Your midline is 45 feet. I probably should say 45 feet up to know that's obviously not going below ground level. Okay, flip over to the front side, please. Number 3 and number 4, you have 2 minutes to do those. Ready, get set, begin.